We got a 26-minute video from Amerikano. This is going to be one crazy video that we're going to review. Anyway, enjoy.
We all know about dinosaurs. They're almost as familiar as the animals that are still around today. But in the long history of life on Earth, there's been a ton of other weird and wonderful species roaming around, many of which just don't get the credit they deserve.
We're shown creatures from the Cenozoic, which already deviate from the title itself. Have you read the title of your video, mister?
So we're gonna set the record straight in this video. From the crazy pot-bellied lizard to the beast with an enormous neck, here's 20 bizarre-looking prehistoric animals.
Which is already different from the title itself. We're going to be looking at another clickbait paleontology video today, by the looks of it.
Number 20. Therizinosaurus.
You call it Therizinosaurus, but you show in Therizinosauridae, and it is a family of dinosaurs.
In 1948, a joint Soviet-Mongolian expedition to find fossils discovered the first remains of a Therizinosaurus. The goal of this trip was to study the Nemegit Formation, which is a geological formation in Mongolia's Gobi Desert that dates back to the late Cretaceous. The digging went well, and a few huge claws and other parts that are thought to be horn sheaths were found. Each one of them was nearly a meter long. This means we're looking at one big dino here.
Therizinosaurus is quite big, so technically you're not wrong by saying it's big.
The Therizinosaurus was indeed a huge dinosaur with a heavy body that lived at the end of the Cretaceous period.
Let me ask you another question. Have you watched your own video? Have you tried to look at the entire video and find mistakes, or are you just too lazy to do so?
Which is about 70 million years ago. We don't know much about this ancient creature because only these few fossils have been found so far. In fact, most of what is known about it is based on guesswork. People think they had a small head with a mouth that ended in a beak and a long, thin neck. Most theropods only used 3 toes, but the Therizinosaurus's feet rested on all 4 toes when it walked or stood. Each arm and leg was 2.5 meters long.
An average Therizinosaurus had approximately 3-meter long legs, while the arms reached around 2.4 meters. So 2.5 meters technically is acceptable.
Based on what we know about them and what science has found, we think they were mainly dependent on plants as food. Their huge claws are probably a sign that they lived in areas where there were a lot of predators though. Those things offer some serious defensive power. But in truth, scientists are still not 100% sure if the Therizinosaurus ate plants, animals, or maybe both.
It is generally an herbivore, but obviously herbivores can also eat animals.
But since all of their close relatives are known to be herbivores, it's more likely that they ate plants. Still, some paleontologists claim that their big claws were used to tear open giant termite nests and feast on the bugs. Time for the rare topic. Now this is one—
No, okay. What do I say about this one? Why is this here for whatever reason? I have no clue why we just put it here. This video has this as its thumbnail, by the way.
Freaky looking prehistoric creature. The fossil was unearthed by a mad archaeologist in the jungles of Indonesia. At least they're calling him mad now because he claims this lizard was also part humanoid.
Which is just, I don't know, it's just absolutely ridiculous. How do I describe it besides being absolutely ridiculous?
When you look at it, there is something vaguely human about it. I've been to a few late night bars where guys look like this. Anyway, what's even crazier is that carbon dating suggests that this thing was around even before the dinosaurs. Take a good look. This is what lived on Earth before dinosaurs.
No, this is not what creatures look like before dinosaurs came to be.
You think this creature was intelligent like humans? What happened to make it go extinct? As always, comment down below with the hashtag #RareTopic and let us know your opinion in relation to what we just showed on screen. Let's move on to the next one.
It's completely and utterly fake.
Number 19. Tanystropheus.
Okay, so this thing lived before the dinosaurs. Alright, it is an archosauromorph. That is one instance where Amerikano manages to not be clickbait. If the title was real, I would have just put in lots of creatures before dinosaurs came in the late Triassic, like Tanystropheus, that guy mentioned. We have Dunkleosteus, we have something like Anomalocharus, yeah, those things. Pulmonoscorpius.
Tanystropheus is an extinct reptile that lived during the late Triassic period.
That is not a Tanystropheus. What are you showing right now?
That's about 215 million years ago. A guy named Francesco Bassini
It's called Francesco Bassani.
found it for the first time back in the 1800s. He gave it a name that means one with a long neck. And oh my, he was not joking. When Bassini first found Tanystropheus, he thought it was a petrosaur.
Petrosaur. Do you mean pterosaur? How do you mispronounce that? That's pterosaur, not petrosaur. How? I'm speechless.
This is one of the most interesting things about it. It was totally misclassified. He didn't realize he was wrong until a long time later when he learned it was actually an archosaur.
An archosauromorph doesn't mean it is an archosaur.
If you didn't know that Tanystropheus was a real animal and saw drawings of it in a dino book, you might think the artist made a mistake or that it was drawn for like a cartoon. Not real. After all, this animal is shown to have a neck that's half as long as the rest of its body, which is pretty weird to say the least. But turns out the necks of these reptiles were really long. Tanystropheus has been interesting for paleontologists ever since it was discovered. People wondered why it had such a long neck.
The lifestyle of this thing has been the subject of a lot of debate.
Or why it only had 10 long vertebrae instead of a whole bunch of little ones like a sauropod.
This looks like an AI-generated image, not gonna lie. Like, look at its unusual body stuff, and its head looks like AI.
All of these are things that paleontologists will need to figure out in the future when they have more information on this mysterious long-necked dino.
Not a dinosaur. This guy says it's an archosaur, which is not true, and even if it's an archosaur, it also contains crocodilians and their extinct relatives under the clade in the division called Pseudosuchia.
In total, Tanystropheus was about 6 meters long, with its neck taking up about 3 meters of its length.
That belongs to the so-called Tanystropheus conspicuous. Tanystropheus hydroides was shorter, with the larger specimens. Take this with a grain of salt. It doesn't say its longest. An estimated length of 5.25 meters. Tanystropheus longobardicus has a maximum length of around 2 meters.
It weighed about 135 kilograms.
So when it comes to the volume, there is a density guideline for a 3.6 meter long model of a Tanystropheus skeleton, with that length having a mass estimate of around 32.9 to 74.8 kilograms. If a Tanystropheus was 6 meters long, it would probably be much bigger than that of around even 150 kilograms.
Paleontologists think that this reptile spent most of its time using its long neck to catch fish while hanging out near riverbanks or near the shore. Its front legs were much shorter than its back legs, which has led paleontologists to think that it may have shifted its weight forward to catch fish. Number 18.
This is quite a funny image, not gonna lie.
Stethacanthus. Stethacanthus was a small shark
It is an extinct genus of shark-like holocephalians.
that lived during the late Devonian and early Carboniferous period.
It also lived to the late Carboniferous epoch, dying out around 298.9 million years ago.
It could grow up to 3 feet long and it weighed about 9 kilograms, but it was a dangerous predator that constantly threatened small fish and other smaller sharks. What really made Stethacanthus stand out was the strange bump on the backs of the male.
It is an unusually shaped dorsal fin. It might have been used to attract mates. It might also have been used to scare away predators by simulating the mouth of a larger fish,
which was often called an ironing board. Experts think that since the top of this structure was rough instead of smooth, it wouldn't have made a good ironing board. No, I'm just kidding. They think that it's a kind of docking mechanism that kept males securely attached to females during mating. If these dino couples were both—
When I heard that dino couples, that just got me by surprise. I'm so shocked that this guy calls these things dinosaurs. Did this guy even mean to at this point?
sci-fi nerds, that could have made for some cute date nights. It took a long time and a lot of field work to figure out what this spine brush complex ironing board looked like and what it actually did. When the first Stethacanthus specimens were found in Europe and North America in the late 1800s, these structures were thought to be a new type of fin.
Well, technically it isn't a new type of fin because it is still a dorsal fin. Just a very unusually shaped one at that.
The clasper theory wasn't accepted until the 1970s, when it was found that the ironing boards were only present on males. Stethacanthus adults, or at least the males, couldn't have been very fast swimmers though, due to this weird docking station. This, along with the way that the ancient shark's teeth were arranged, suggests that Stethacanthus was mostly a bottom feeder, though it might not have been afraid to go after slowfish and cephalopods when the chance came up.
Yeah, nothing much wrong with this one. The Stethacanthus lived before the dinosaurs.
Number 17. Sharovipteryx.
You just add the E in for no reason. Also, it lived in a period where dinosaurs actually began to appear.
Ah, the famous Sharovipteryx. Is there a more bizarre Triassic critter than this one? It was a strange archosauriform reptile.
It is not an archosauriform, it is an archosauromorph.
That was only about 25 centimeters long from head to tail. Its tail was so thin that it was almost invisible, and the tip of its snout was small and sharp. Its body was also very thin and almost flat, and its front legs were short and thin. Its back legs were also very, very long and skinny. But the reason for this length is easy to understand. Fossils show that there was a long skin membrane that went from the tips of the toes to the armpits.
One thing that's good about this channel is that it throws in some crazy obscure type of species, that you can actually learn a little bit from the channel itself, which is quite nice.
This membrane used the legs as anchors. Sharovipteryx may have only had thin membrane for skin on its back legs, but it did have scales like a lizard all over its body. The long, thin tail didn't seem to have any decorations at all. So this means that Sharovipteryx was a glider that used its back legs in a cool delta wing shape. It was one of the few animals, and one of the only known reptiles that could do this.
A more well-known example would be the Coelurosaurus. It was added in Jurassic World Alive, for example. So it is technically more well-known.
The thin front limbs would have been like an airplane's canard. They would have helped the animal move more quickly through the air and also helped it steer. Number 16. Quetzalcoatlus.
This thing lived right at the end of the Cretaceous. The era which has Tyrannosaurs, Edmontosaurs, Triceratops, Ankylosaurs, Majungasaurus. All of these things are dinosaurs.
At the end of the dinosaur age, Quetzalcoatlus ruled the skies of North America. It flew high above well-known dinosaurs like Tyrannosaurus and Triceratops. The biggest Quetzalcoatlus species was also the biggest flying animals ever.
No, that title belongs to the Jaekelopterus, and you'd have to go all the way to Transylvania in Romania.
They were as big as giraffes, and they were the last step in the evolution of Petrosaurs.
Petrosaurs again? Are you serious?
Quetzalcoatlus is the most well-known member of the family Petrosaurs, called Azhdarchids.
There is no excuse to call pterosaurs Petrosaurs. None.
It was named after a Mesoamerican god and lived between 144 and 66 million years ago.
How are you screwing up so bad when it comes to these guys, pterosaurs? Quetzalcoatlus lived around 68 to 66 million years ago, not 144 to 66 million years ago. It did not live through the entire lifespan of the Cretaceous.
More recently, the Azhdarchids were theorized to be like storks that hunted small animals on land while walking on dry ground. The animal ate almost everything it could fit in their mouth, so this model works. So the current thinking suggests that Adsarchids spent most of their time on land, not near the water. A Quetzalcoatlus could pick up a prey as big as small dinosaurs and eat them with its huge, toothless jaws. Number 15. Pterodaustro.
This is a pterosaur that also lived with dinosaurs of its environment, so no, it does not follow the title.
Pterodaustro is a type of petrosaur
Stop, please stop it.
that lived in the early Cretaceous period, about 144 to 130 million years ago.
It lived around 105 million years ago, which is still classified as early Cretaceous.
In the 1960s, it was dug up in Argentina's Lagorcito Formation, and paleontologist Jose Bonaparte gave it his name in 1969.
The genus was named in 1969, correct, but it is still an undescribed nomen nudum. The first description followed in 1970, making the name valid, the type species being Pterodaustro guineazui.
Since then, another Pterodaustro fossil has been found in Chile's Santa Ana Formation. This name means southern wing. Many pictures of Pterodaustro show it looking like a prehistoric flamingo, which is probably pretty much exactly how it looked.
Doesn't mean they're both closely related. Flamingo is a dinosaur, while Pterodaustro is a pterosaur.
It might have even had pink feathers like flamingos do, which is caused by pigments in shrimp and algae. It might also have a few other features that made it look a lot like a flamingo. For example, this animal had a beak similar to a flamingo's beak to filter water for its food. This petrosaur...
Can you stop calling it a petrosaur? Is it AI generated? Or are you too lazy to correct yourself?
is also interesting because it was the first one ever found in South America. Most of the other ones have been found in North America before this one was discovered. Other species have been found there since then, but this one was the first. Hashtag first for Pterodaustro. The truth about Pterodaustro is that even though it looks a lot like a flamingo, it's not a direct ancestor of flamingos.
Why would it be? I don't know why you'd think of that.
In fact, it doesn't even have the same ancestors as birds. No, birds evolved from small dinosaurs with feathers, which are called dino birds.
Toddler audience catering confirms.
But the Pterodaustro's line sadly disappeared. Number 14. Forest-Ricidae.
Forest-Ricidae. Also, these guys lived after the non-avian dinosaurs went extinct. These are still dinosaurs technically, but they are birds.
Forest-Ricidae isn't called terror bird just because it's easier to say. This prehistoric bird may have very well been scary to small animals in South America during the middle of the Miocene because it was absolutely huge. At 2.5 meters tall, had clawed wings, and a heavy, crushing beak.
Well, have you forgotten about another one called the Kelenken?
Some paleontologists think that the flightless terror bird grabbed its trembling meal with its talons, held it in its strong jaws, and repeatedly hit it on the ground until its head caved in. Whew! This is based on the behavior of the Kelenken, a similar but much smaller relative.
Kelenken is a terror bird, and it is larger than the forest racos. It's the largest forest racid.
It's also possible that the terror bird's big beak evolved because bigger beaks on males made it more attractive to females during mating season. Since its type fossil was found in 1887, terror bird has gone by a confusing number of names that are no longer used or have been changed. These names included Darwinoris, Titanoris, Stereornis, and Leornis,
which are all correct. This guy did a little bit of research, at least. Well, on certain topics, not including dinosaurs, non-avian dinosaurs to be specific, and also pterosaurs, by the way.
The name that stuck was given by a fossil hunter who thought, based on the size of the bones, that he was dealing with a megafauna mammal, and not a bird. This is why the terror bird's genus name doesn't end with the Greek word for ornis, meaning bird, although ornis is actually Greek for rag bearer for reasons that remain mysterious. By the way, the terror bird was related to the Titanus.
Guess what? The Titanus is also a terror bird. Forest-Ricidae, the entire family, they're called terror birds.
Another terror bird of the Americas that was about the same size and went extinct at the end of the Pleistocene epoch.
The Titanus went extinct 1.8 million years ago in the early Pleistocene.
In fact, some experts consider Titanus to be a type of terror bird. So with these two on the loose, life must have been pretty scary. Terrifying. I should have said terrifying. It's a terror bird. Oh. Number 13. Opabinia.
Yeah, we've heard of that thing before.
During the Middle Cambrian period, there was a strange animal called Opabinia. It had 30 legs, 30 flippers, a nose like an elephant's trunk, and a claw like a lobster's. And you thought the platypus was weird. This is thought to be one of the strangest animals that's ever lived.
It's Cambrian. Of course things are going to be strange.
The head had 5 eyes, 2 on stalks near the front and close to the middle of the head, pointing up and forward, 2 larger eyes, also on stalks, near the back and edges of the head, pointing up and to the sides, and a single eye with a shorter stalk between the larger pair of stalked eyes, pointing up.
Yeah, we can also include this in the video. This one is legit. It lived way before the dinosaurs came in. The first dinosaur is closer to us than it is to Opabinia.
It was really weird. Opabinia likely used its proboscis to look for food in the sediment and bring it to its mouth. Since there's nothing on it that looks like jaws, it's likely that its food was small and soft. But even though it was only 5 centimeters long, Opabinia was a fierce predator. However, the Opabinia was different from any modern arthropod in the way that it looked. Scientists think that it had 2 pairs of legs on each segment. The upper pair held gills so it could breathe, and the lower pair was used for walking.
One thing about this guy's list is that they're usually hit or miss. When they hit, they're okay. But when they miss, they flop so hard.
Number 12. Nyctosaurus.
This thing did indeed live with dinosaurs.
Nyctosaurus was the first member of the small petrosaur family, Nyctosauridae.
Stop with the petrosaur shenanigans.
It's often thought to have lived at the same time as the more famous and similar-looking genus Pteranodon.
I mean, you're technically not wrong. They both did live during the Santonian to Campanian ages.
We also know that Nyctosaurus had a huge crest that was much bigger than the rest of its body. It was a thin, bony structure that looked like antlers and was up to 55 centimeters tall.
Crazy how this can be called tall.
In the middle, there was a spar that pointed backwards. At times, the crest has been rebuilt by paleontologists with a huge skin frill, but this is no longer thought to be possible. All of these petrosaurs—
Please, I beg of you, stop calling pterosaurs petrosaurs.
used a method called dynamic soaring to fly. Today, a lot of other seabirds, especially albatrosses, use the same method. Basically, it utilizes the difference in air pressure just above the water's surface. This is a simple way to get from one place to another without having to work too hard. Using this method, they could move at very fast speeds.
The cruising speed of Nyctosaurus gracilis is around 9.6 meters per second. A bit slower than Usain Bolt, but still quite quick. 9.6 meters per second equates to around 34.5 kilometers per hour or 21.4 miles per hour.
Studies show that this genus also grew quickly, and it was almost fully grown in less than 1 year. Number 11. Microraptor.
Guess what? The Microraptor is a dinosaur that lived with other dinosaurs. What a surprise!
Microraptor is one of the most amazing fossils ever found. It's a small dinosaur with feathers and 4 wings instead of 2. It's the smallest animal in the entire dinosaur bestiary.
That title belongs to the bee hummingbird.
Let's learn some important things about the Microraptor. Microraptor shocked paleontologists when it was found in China at the start of the new millennium. This bird-like dinosaur—
Alright, the Microraptor is legitimately a dinosaur, so I can't really say anything against this guy.
had wings on both its front and back legs. At the time, all the feathered dino birds—
Dude, you should just quit using the term dino birds altogether. It just makes you look like you're catering you're catering to like a 2-year-old audience, which you probably are, to be honest.
that had been found, like the Archaeopteryx, had only 1 set of wings that covered their front legs. This has, of course, made people think a lot more deeply about how dinosaurs of the Mesozoic era evolved into birds.
Mesozoic era. Do you mean Mesozoic era?
When feathered dinosaurs turn into fossils, they sometimes leave behind melanosomes, which are cells that make pigment. These are handy because we can look at them with an electron microscope. In 2012, Chinese researchers used this method to find that one species of Microraptor had thick black feathers that were layered. Also, these feathers were shiny and iridescent, which could have been a way to impress other sexes during mating season, but didn't affect this dinosaur's ability to fly.
More likely that it glided using all four limbs for lift. Subsequent studies have suggested that Microraptor is capable of powered flight as well.
If you take a look around your backyard, you might notice that all of the birds have 2 wings instead of 4. This simple fact makes it clear that Microraptor was a dead end for evolution. Any 4-winged birds that evolved from this dinosaur, for which we currently have 0 fossil evidence, died out during the Mesozoic era.
And if we have 0 fossil evidence, then the suggestion would be unclear.
And all modern birds evolved from feathered dinosaurs with 2 wings, not 4. Number 10. Megalania.
I'm sorry, this thing lived well deep into the Cenozoic era, which non-avian dinosaurs, they went extinct a long time. They went extinct for a long time already. This thing lived from 1.5 million to just 40,000 years ago.
After the age of the dinosaurs, only crocodiles and a few other reptiles grew to be very big. The Megalania, also known as the giant monitor lizard, was a notable exception. Depending on whose reconstruction you believe, Megalania was anywhere from 3.7 to 7 meters long and weighed between 225 and 700 kilograms.
With the fragmentary nature of known remains, the estimates are highly uncertain. Some say it's around 331 kilograms at 4.5 meters in length. Its average is 3.5 meters and 97 to 158 kilograms. Some would say 5.5 meters long, 575 kilograms. While there would also be an estimate in 2004 by Ralph Monar saying that it had a length of 7.9 meters. And then, while if its tail to body proportions were more similar to the Komodo dragon in length, but 7 meters is more likely. The estimated weight, a mass of 1940 kilograms, with a leaner 320 kilograms being average. And the 7.9 meter estimate was based on if it had a long, thin tail like the lace monitor.
I know, this is a really big range, but it would still put it in a heavier weight class than the Komodo dragon, which is the largest lizard alive today, and a relative lightweight at only 70 kilos. Megalania is interesting because it's the largest known lizard that's ever lived on Earth. If that makes you want to take a second look at a regular little lizard that you see in your yard, remember that Megalania is part of the order Squamata, which puts it on a completely different branch of evolution than big dinosaurs, archosaurs, and therapsids.
With the likes of other lizards, snakes, and amphibians, aka worm lizards.
Today, there's close to 10,000 species of lizards and snakes in the order Squamata, and the monitor lizards are the modern descendants of Megalania. Number 9. Longisquama.
Okay, this one is legit because it lived before dinosaurs.
Based on its single, incomplete fossil, Longisquama was related to other small flying reptiles that lived during the Triassic period, such as Quetzalcoatlus and Icarnosaurus.
Quanosaurus and Icarosaurus, but they're both in the late Triassic. Also, Quanosaurus is a coelosaur dinosauromorph, while Icarosaurus is an extinct genus of Queniosaurid reptiles.
The difference is that the skin of these other reptiles was flat and shaped like butterfly wings, while Longisquama had thin, narrow plumes sticking out of its vertebrae.
This over here is not legit because Parasaurolophus is over here with supposedly a Longisquama. I'm sure Red Raptor Rights will watch this and then he'll just go on a fit of rage. Parasaurolophus is one of the guy's favorite dinosaurs. Please don't put it in the same environment as Longisquama. Let it kick the butt of its predators like Daspletosaurus.
The exact direction of which is still unknown. It's possible that these quill-like structures went from side to side and gave Longisquama some lift when it jumped from a high tree branch to another high tree branch, or they may have stuck straight up and had no function other than decoration. And if the latter is the case, then it was probably related to sexual selection. Scientists have not missed the fact that Longisquama's frills seem to have stopped short of being real feathers. A small number of paleontologists have used this similarity to suggest that Longisquama may have been the ancestor of birds.
Which this claim is just completely untrue. It is not supported by cladistic analysis. It is regarded as a diapsid with strange scales, ambiguous skeletal figures, and no real significance to bird evolution.
Number 8. Liopleurodon.
Okay, whatever you do, please don't show the 25-meter Liopleurodon from Walking with Dinosaurs. Okay, I don't think that's the 25-meter Liopleurodon, but alright. It lived from the Middle Jurassic to the Late Jurassic at around 166 to 155 million years ago. So it did technically live at the same period as certain dinosaurs.
The Liopleurodon was a large, meat-eating
No! How did I jinx that so bad?
marine reptile that lived between 150 and 160 million years ago, during the Middle and Late Jurassic period. They were huge top predators that lived all over Western Europe and ate many different kinds of animals. Some of the marine reptiles from the past didn't have gills, which is something people forget today. So just like whales and dolphins do today, Liopleurodons had to come up to the surface sometimes to take big breaths of air.
Please, the 25-meter Liopleurodon is the worst part of the series.
The Liopleurodon was a carnivore that mostly ate the Chimaerosaurus or other marine reptiles from the past. Armed with those big flippers, Liopleurodons mostly hunted by sneaking up on their prey and attacking with a powerful thrust. Their nose pointed forward, which suggests that they had a good sense of smell that probably helped them find prey from pretty far away.
Please use it or them when it comes to these animals.
Number 7. Josephoartigasia.
Yeah, I heard this thing before. It lived 3 to 2 million years ago, way after the non-avian dinosaurs went extinct.
For a long time, the Phoberomys was thought to be the biggest known rodent. However, a new skull of a Josephoartigasia showed that it was much bigger. Like Phoberomys, Josephoartigasia was much bigger than the capybara, which is the largest rodent known to be alive today. Josephoartigasia is thought to have lived in a wetland where it would have used its 30 centimeters long incisor teeth to cut through grasses and other plants.
Okay, so Brightside was created by the same company that created 5-minute crabs. That means they came from Cyprus. Amerikano is basically just Brightside, but not Cyprus. In the fact that now they're just spitting out facts that have nothing to do with the title itself.
No one knows for sure why bigger rodents like Josephoartigasia died out, but Josephoartigasia went extinct after something called the Great American Interchange. At the end of the Pliocene, when North and South America joined together, this is where animals that had once been living separately were able to mix. For Josephoartigasia, this would have meant more competition from both new herbivores and new predators.
Okay, this guy sorta knows biodiversity, although competition is incredibly basic knowledge.
And it seems like they didn't stand the test of time. Number 6. Jaekelopterus.
I've heard this thing a gazillion times before. Probably from this specific channel, maybe from other channels. Not sure. I forgot already. But this one is legit on the list. It lived during the early Devonian.
2 scientists from the University of Bristol found the remains of a claw that belonged to the spiky sea creature known as the Jaekelopterus. It was a type of sea scorpion, but it was an absolute monster.
It's an animal. Please don't call it a monster. Although, to be fair, this animation is kinda cool. Quite cool, even though the designs aren't great. Probably got that from another YouTuber, I don't know.
In 2007, Simon Brady and Marcus Porschman both wrote about their discovery of the huge Jaekelopterus renene.
I don't see their names. my guy.
The animal lived 400 million years ago in the early Devonian.
More specifically, from 410.8 to 402.5 million years ago.
It probably lived and hunted in fresh water systems instead of the ocean, however. This wasn't such a strange thing to happen, since not all sea scorpions were even marine animals. Most of the ones that came before Jaekelopterus were sea creatures, but the ones that came after then moved to rivers and estuaries. It was thought that the huge animal was about 2.5 meters long, not including its sharp teeth. Adding these parts would make it a meter longer.
Alright, this one seems legit, so I can't really complain about this one.
Making it the biggest and strongest arthropod that's ever lived. Number 5. Helicoprion.
Okay, this one is also legit. It lived during the Permian period at around 290 to 270 million years ago, during the Caesarean to Guadalupian, Artinskian to Rhodian.
The only thing left of the ancient shark Helicoprion
It is not a shark. It is a Eugenodont.
is a tight coil of triangular teeth that looks a bit like a fruit roll-up, but much deadlier than that. Okay, so most things are more deadly than a fruit roll-up, but this one's like a billion times deadlier. Paleontologists think that this strange appendage was attached to the bottom of Helicoprion's jaw, but they don't know how it was used or what it was used to catch.
It might have been used to have been an adaptation for feeding on soft-bodied prey, and may have functioned as a de-shelling mechanism for hard-bodied cephalopods.
Some experts think that the coil was used to grind the shells off of mollusks that the Helicoprion had caught, while others, perhaps influenced by the movie Alien, think that the Helicoprion exploded the coil out like a whip and speared any unfortunate creatures that got in its way.
That's just fictional, so...
Awesome! Regardless, the fact that this coil exists shows that the real world can be stranger than, or at least as strange as, fiction.
It's prehistoric, alright? There's going to be lots of strange stuff.
It's often made me wonder, the world is already so crazy and amazing, why do you need fantastical stories and religion to make it interesting for yourself? The real world is plenty interesting. Number 4. Hallucigenia.
God knows how many times this guy mentioned Hallucigenia in many of his videos. Every video that I reviewed this guy. Perhaps. Well, probably not all of them, but most of them.
When an animal has been gone for more than 400 million years, it can be hard to know what it looked like. Just ask Hallucigenia.
It lived from Cambrian Stage 3 to Middle Cambrian, which dates to approximately 500 million years ago. Stage 3 to Middle Cambrian is around 521 million years ago to perhaps around 500 million years ago. Yeah, more than 400 million years.
Scientists have been studying the worm about the size of a thumb for more than 50 years, but they only just found out which end is the head. A new model of the creature shows that it had a ring of teeth around its mouth, simple eyes, and tiny teeth along its foregut. With this new information, not only does Hallucigenia make more sense, but it's also a lot scarier than we imagined at first.
It looks fine to me, but whatever.
The fossil was about 0.5 inches long, and the people who found it said it was a type of annelid worm, which includes leeches and earthworms. You're gonna love how it got its name. Scientists called it Hallucigenia because it looked like something that somebody might see on a bad acid trip.
To be fair, many scientists would think that it is very freaky.
But the same scientists had been looking at Hallucigenia upside down for 50 years, so maybe they just should lay off the acid themselves. So eventually, the scientists turned it upside down and everyone was like, oh, right, of course, it goes that way. We've known about this animal for years, and it might seem kind of funny that we didn't know which end was the head and which end was the tail for decades.
Alright, moving on. Hopefully something better comes in.
Number 3. Epidexipteryx.
And then I just jinxed it like that. This guy, this is a dinosaur, lived during 164 million years ago. That means it potentially coexisted with dinosaurs at the time.
In the past few years, dinosaurs have become very cute, it seems. There's no longer lumps of rippling muscle, and teeth from a Victorian-era museum. In fact, a lot of them weren't scary at all. The secret truth about dinosaurs is they're often small animals with fur and feathers.
For example, in the case of birds.
For example, scientists from China discovered a new fossil that they named Epidexipteryx hui. The rocks where the fossil was found are between 152 and 168 million years old. It was clear that Epidexipteryx couldn't fly. It didn't have enough lift because it didn't have the right feathers on its arm.
It probably appears to have lacked wing feathers, though based on related Yi, it may possess some sort of membrane wing to allow gliding.
Fuzzy feathers help keep birds warm, and many paleontologists think that the insulation was one of the first things that feathers were used for on dinosaurs. Epidexipteryx means show wing,
It means display feathers, so technically you're not wrong.
which is a good name for this bird. Its tail feathers were beautiful, but they couldn't have helped it fly or keep it warm. Instead, they look a lot like the flamboyant feathers of some living birds, such as the widow bird. Male birds use their long tail feathers to attract females, perhaps by letting them know about their amazing genes. The males have to pay a price for their long tails, either in the energy that it takes to grow them or in the drag that they cause while flying.
Okay, so this one is definitely not legit, because this thing lived during a period in the middle of the period of dinosaurs. It lived 164 million years ago, which, dinosaurs would begin to dominate at around early Jurassic, so yeah.
Number 2. Dunkleosteus.
You mean to pronounce it like Dunkleosteus?
In the Devonian period, more than 100 million years before the first dinosaurs lived, most marine mammals
Marine mammals. Mammals did not exist until late Triassic at 225 million years ago.
were small and shy, but Dunkleosteus was the one animal that tested this rule. This huge armored fish from the Devonian period was about 30 feet long and weighed 3 or 4 tons.
Which is an overestimate even in 2019, 2017, and it would be absolutely ridiculous in 2023.
It was likely the biggest vertebrae of its time, and most certainly the biggest fish in the Devonian seas. Reconstructions can be a little bit of a stretch, but Dunkleosteus probably looked like a big underwater tank, with a thick body, a head that bulged out, and big jaws. Dunkleosteus wouldn't have had to have been a great swimmer because of its armor of bones that would have been enough to protect it from Cladus saloche
Fun fact, it was an apex predator in its ecosystem.
and other predators living in this salty habitat. Since so many fossils of Dunkleosteus have been found, paleontologists know a lot about how this ancient fish lived and how it worked. For example, there's some evidence that members
This doesn't look like a Dunkleosteus to me.
of this genus sometimes ate each other when they ran out of other fish to eat. An analysis of the jaw bones of Dunkleosteus showed that this vertebrate could bite with about 8,000 pounds per square inch, which puts it in the same league as both Tyrannosaurus rex and Megalodon,
You can't compare T-Rex bite to Megalodon out of everything.
which lived much later. Given that Dunkleosteus was popular almost everywhere 360 million years ago, the obvious question is why this armored fish and its placoderm relatives went extinct at the end of the Carboniferous period.
At the end of the Carboniferous period. Do you mean the end of the Devonian? I don't know what to say. The end of the Carboniferous was 298 million years ago, 298.9 million years ago, not 358.9 million years ago.
Most likely, these vertebrates died out because of changes in the ocean during the so-called Hangenberg event, which caused the amount of oxygen in the sea to drop. A drop in oxygen would not have been good for a huge fish like Dunkleosteus. Number 1. Deinotherium.
Deinotherium. Also, this thing is in the Cenozoic era. And by the Cenozoic era, again, all non-avian dinosaurs went extinct.
Deinotheriums were big animals that looked a lot like elephants and lived in Africa, Europe, and Central Asia.
It lived ranging from East Africa to Southern Europe and to the east of the Indian subcontinent.
Most of them lived during the Miocene and Pliocene, but one genus was still around during the early Pleistocene. Deinotheriums were some of the biggest elephants that ever lived.
The Deinotherium was not an elephant.
They're about the same size as African elephants are now.
Nah, Deinotherium was larger than that.
These animals were less evolved than elephants today, and they looked a little different. They had longer legs, a flat forehead, a short trunk, and strange tusks on the bottom of their jaws that curled inward. It's thought that Deinotheriums lived in forests and used their curved tusks to strip leaves from the tree branches.
Amerikano brings surprises. Always brings surprises when it comes to number 1. For example, I believe that they put an Allosaurus at number 1 in one of their videos. In the most dangerous dinosaurs ever. Above the T-Rex by 14 ranks for some reason. They're probably just, this guy's probably just ranking it in no particular order. I feel like this guy ranked Deinotherium number 1 at no particular order as well.
Deinotheriums were, however, bigger and had longer legs than elephants today.
But you just said that the Deinotherium was about the same size as an African elephant today. This is you just contradicted what you said, my guy.
The only elephants that might have been bigger were the Columbian mammoths and a huge elephant, Paleontoloxodon namedicus. The head of Deinotherium is not like the heads of most elephants. The forehead is very flat, and even though the nose hole is big, other parts of the skull show that the trunk was probably very short. Deinotherium was a group of elephants.
Deinotherium was not an elephant. It was not even an elephantoid. It was not even an elephantiform. It was a dinothere in the order of Proboscidea
that lived long ago and were good at stripping leaves from trees. As the Miocene period came to an end, the climate around the world became cooler and drier. This changed the world's ecosystems from forests to grasslands, which in turn affected the evolution of mammals. So, are you glad that we don't share a planet with these crazy animals?
Yeah, this is the end of the video. Absolutely awful, as you can see. These are long videos. Yeah, it's good to revisit them, but at the same time, it's really painful for me. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed it.